Las Vegas, July 4th, 1997. Security cameras quietly record as a woman steps up to a slot machine. Moments later, lights flash, bells ring out. Another massive jackpot winner, $3.7 million. Casino security barely notices, just another lucky gambler. But they're wrong. There's nothing lucky about this jackpot. It's theft, perfectly executed in broad daylight. For over 2 decades, Dennis Nikrasch stole millions from Las Vegas casinos without ever hacking their computers or holding a gun. His method was simple but brilliant. He rigged slot machines directly in front of security cameras, then sent in carefully chosen team members, often women, to casually play and claim jackpots, completely unnoticed. Casinos knew they were losing money, but they couldn't explain how. They saw nothing suspicious, no forced entries, no obvious cheating. Yet millions vanished, seemingly into thin air. It was the most sophisticated casino heist Las Vegas had ever seen. But this story didn't start in Vegas. It started decades earlier, with a locksmith in Chicago who discovered that the most secure locks weren't on doors, they were inside casino slot machines. This is the true story of Dennis Nikrasch, the man who fooled Las Vegas, outsmarted casinos, and stole over $16 million without anyone realizing until it was far too late. Chicago, 1961. A young man sits handcuffed in the back of a police cruiser. It's Dennis McAndrew, a 20-year-old locksmith with a unique gift. He can memorize the shape of a key just by glancing at it once. The Chicago Police Department knows his talent. That's why he's here tonight. For months, Dennis has been quietly supplying keys to the Genovese crime family, one of the most powerful mafia organizations in America. They used his skills to effortlessly break into homes, jewelry stores, and cars across the city. But tonight, something went wrong. A robbery was botched, someone got careless, and now Dennis faces a life-changing choice. The police offer him a simple deal: cooperate, give them names, and walk away clean. But Dennis knows better. Cooperating with authorities is suicide in his world. The Genovese family isn't forgiving. Betray them, and they'll make sure you're never found, alive or dead. But refusing to talk means prison, possibly years locked away in a cell, losing his youth, his freedom, everything. Dennis weighs the choice in silence: betrayal and death, or silence and prison. In the backseat of that police car, he makes the only decision he can. He doesn't say a word. The Genovese family respects loyalty, and Dennis earns theirs in that single moment. But loyalty has a price. For his silence, the courts hand down a heavy sentence. He spends almost a decade behind bars. His 20s vanish behind thick concrete walls. In those long, empty years, Dennis realizes something critical. He'll never share his talents again. Not for mobsters, not for anyone. From now on, he will work alone. 10 years later, Dennis steps outside prison gates into daylight, breathing free air again. It's 1970, and he knows he needs a fresh start. He heads west, choosing Las Vegas. He arrives quietly, takes a new name, Dennis Nikrasch, his mother's maiden name. For Dennis, Vegas isn't about gambling. It's about something simpler, something much more lucrative: slot machines. He notices them everywhere, lining every casino floor, packed with coins ripe for the picking. But Dennis sees only puzzles, machines designed by humans, vulnerable to human hands. And keys are Dennis's specialty. To a locksmith like Dennis, every machine is just a metal box secured by simple locks. He knows he can open them, but he needs to find out how, and more importantly, how to do it without anyone noticing. The next day, Dennis buys a slot machine from a secondhand dealer. He sets it up inside his small apartment, away from prying eyes. Alone in silence, he takes it apart, piece by piece. He studies its internal workings. Within days, Dennis understands exactly how these machines operate. Slot machines of this era are mechanical. To trigger a jackpot, reels must align perfectly. Dennis discovers that he can physically set these reels to any combination he wants, but there's one major obstacle: a built-in alarm. Casinos design these machines to alert security if they're opened without authorization. Once the door opens, there's only 5 seconds before the alarm activates. Dennis practices repeatedly, timing himself carefully. In less than a week, he can open the machine, disable the alarm, adjust the reels, and shut it again, all in under 15 seconds. Confident, Dennis carefully chooses his first target, an isolated slot machine near the back of a smaller casino. He stands quietly, blending in among tourists and regular gamblers. When the moment is perfect, he swiftly unlocks the machine, disables the alarm, aligns the reels, and locks it again. Seconds later, an accomplice steps up casually, pulls the lever, and triggers a jackpot. The casino celebrates another lucky winner. No one suspects anything. Dennis repeats this process hundreds of times. Each time, another jackpot. Each time, casinos lose thousands of dollars without ever realizing they're being robbed. Over the next 3 years, Dennis quietly steals over $10 million. The casinos know they're losing money, but there's no explanation. Machines show no tampering. Locks remain intact. Cameras capture nothing unusual. But no crime is perfect. In 1986, Dennis makes a critical mistake. He returns to a casino he's robbed multiple times before. The machine is isolated, familiar. He opens it smoothly, disables the alarm, aligns the reels. But this time, someone is watching. A new security guard has arrived early for his shift. He notices Dennis shutting the machine quickly. Suspicious, he confronts him. Dennis is caught on the spot. Security pins him down, the police arrive, and Dennis is arrested. Once again, he faces prison. But this time, he's left wondering if he'll ever have another chance. Vegas is changing. Slot machines are evolving. The simple mechanical slots he mastered are quickly being replaced by electronic machines. Machines that seem impossible to beat. Sitting in a jail cell, Dennis knows if he ever returns, he'll need a completely new method, a method no one has ever thought of before. Las Vegas, early 1990s. Dennis steps out of prison again, but the city he returns to is different. The mechanical slot machines he once mastered are disappearing, replaced by digital machines filled with complex electronics. At first glance, these new machines seem impossible to beat. No locks to pick, no reels to set, only sealed cabinets and digital screens. But Dennis isn't discouraged. He's determined to understand how these new machines work. He rents a quiet house on the edge of town, setting up a workshop hidden inside the garage. He buys several electronic slot machines, places them side by side, and spends hours dismantling them, examining every circuit board and microchip. Dennis quickly discovers these modern slot machines operate entirely through software. A small chip inside each machine determines if a spin wins or loses. If he can control this chip, he can control the outcome. But he's a locksmith, not a computer engineer. This new challenge is beyond his skills. To pull it off, Dennis realizes he'll need a partner, someone he trusts, someone with technical expertise. He reaches back into his past and contacts an old associate named Eugene Bulgarino. Eugene is wealthy, connected, and skilled with electronics. More importantly, Eugene trusts Dennis completely. Loyalty earned decades ago. Together, in Dennis's garage, they begin carefully reverse engineering the machines. After months of trial and error, Dennis and Eugene build a small, handheld device. It's simple to operate, compact enough to hide easily. When attached to a slot machine's motherboard, it rewires the chip's programming, forcing the machine to produce jackpots repeatedly, exactly when they want. But there's a catch. To use the device, Dennis must physically open each slot machine in plain sight. Casino security cameras are everywhere, watching every move. To bypass this, Dennis assembles a new team. He recruits careful, inconspicuous helpers, people to stand around him, blocking cameras from seeing clearly. On their first test run, Dennis enters a busy casino surrounded by his team. Cameras notice nothing unusual, just another group of gamblers playing slots. Shielded from view, Dennis swiftly opens the machine, connects his device, and closes it again. Seconds later, an accomplice sits down, spins the reels, and hits an easy jackpot of $30,000. It works flawlessly. Casinos suspect nothing. Encouraged, Dennis and his team move carefully from casino to casino, repeating the same trick. Each jackpot grows bigger. Hundreds of thousands in cash, luxury cars, prizes, all collected by different team members to avoid suspicion. By July 4th, 1997, they're ready for their largest score yet. At Harrah's Casino, Dennis chooses a high-limit slot machine with a massive jackpot, $3.7 million. The team carefully positions themselves around him, hiding his quick movements. Within moments, the machine is rigged. Minutes later, an accomplice casually sits down and hits the jackpot. The casino erupts in cheers. Another lucky winner celebrated. Dennis walks away quietly, unnoticed, blending effortlessly into the crowd. It's the biggest jackpot they've ever stolen. But while the celebrations begin at Harrah's, far away in Phoenix, trouble starts brewing. One of Dennis's team members has been arrested for unrelated crimes. Under pressure from the FBI, the accomplice decides prison isn't worth loyalty and reveals everything he knows, including Dennis's name, methods, and next target. Dennis, unaware, continues planning what he believes will be his greatest heist ever, the $17 million megabucks jackpot. He has no idea the FBI is already closing in. In the early hours of June 18, 1998, Dennis wakes suddenly. A loud knock shakes his door. Before he can react, FBI agents burst into the room, weapons drawn. They quickly secure Dennis and search every corner of his home. Within minutes, they find everything: slot machine manuals, locksmith tools, detailed plans for future casinos, and most importantly, the small electronic device Dennis designed. It's the end. Dennis remains silent as agents confiscate evidence, including 2 slot machines he's used for practice and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stolen property. Soon after, the FBI arrests Dennis's closest associates, including Eugene Bulgarino and several of the blockers who helped pull off the scams. The carefully constructed network Dennis spent years building collapses instantly, piece by piece. Facing overwhelming evidence, Dennis realizes he has few options. Prosecutors offer him a simple deal: fully cooperate, show exactly how he beat the machines, and in return, receive a lighter sentence. Dennis accepts. He calmly demonstrates for investigators how he manipulated the slots. Casinos, regulators, and FBI agents watch in disbelief as Dennis opens a machine, effortlessly attaches his device, and forces jackpot after jackpot in a controlled demonstration. Investigators finally understand why casinos could never detect his methods. Dennis's technique left no obvious signs. Machines appeared untouched, security systems useless. It was simple, invisible, and completely undetectable until now. In December 1998, Dennis pleads guilty to multiple federal charges: conspiracy, money laundering, interstate transportation of stolen property, and racketeering. In exchange for his cooperation, his sentence is significantly reduced. On March 5, 1999, Dennis stands in court as the judge delivers the sentence: 7.5 years in federal prison. Compared to his earlier terms, it feels merciful. But Dennis understands prison is only part of the punishment. It's a lenient sentence considering the scale of his thefts, but Dennis knows prison isn't the end. Nevada's casinos have been humiliated by his scheme. Regulators and casino owners unite swiftly, determined to never again fall victim to someone like Dennis. In 2004, after serving his full term, Dennis is released, but freedom brings little comfort. Immediately upon release, Nevada authorities add Dennis to their infamous Black Book, the state's official exclusion list. The Black Book isn't just symbolic. For a man like Dennis, it's a life sentence. Dennis can never again set foot in any Nevada casino. If he's caught even entering a gambling establishment, he faces immediate arrest and more prison time. Dennis quietly accepts it. He leaves Nevada behind entirely, moving west to California, living anonymously under the name Dennis McAndrew, the alias he originally took decades earlier. Casinos across the country, meanwhile, implement massive security upgrades. Slot machines are redesigned with encrypted chips and tamper-proof hardware. Surveillance cameras now cover every inch of casino floors. Security teams are trained specifically to recognize and prevent the kind of subtle manipulation Dennis perfected. Dennis watches from afar as the industry spends millions to protect itself. Ironically, his greatest crime becomes a blueprint for casino security. Every slot machine now has defenses created specifically to prevent another Dennis from succeeding. In 2010, Dennis passed away quietly in California, unnoticed by the public. No headlines, no attention. But behind the closed doors of casinos, Dennis's legacy lives on. Regulators remember him clearly. Casinos still share stories of his exploits as a warning. Today, his methods are impossible to replicate, his crimes impossible to repeat. Casinos have ensured that. But they learned the hard way, and they learned from Dennis. Yet Dennis's story leaves behind one unanswered question that haunts casinos even now. Is the next Dennis already out there, quietly watching, silently waiting, figuring out how to beat the unbeatable? Because as Dennis himself proved, security is only perfect until someone smarter comes along.